From a theater filled with people that collapsed under the weight of a snow-covered roof, killing 98 people, to a hotel with glamorous walkways above a crowded lobby where 114 people tragically fell to their deaths due to a single design flaw, here are the 7 construction projects in the U.S. that didn't go as planned. Hyatt Regency walkway collapse 1981. Our story begins at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Kansas City. The hotel was a beacon of architectural elegance known for its modern design and luxurious ambiance. But on July 17, 1981, this symbol of sophistication turned into a site of tragedy. The hotel's ground atrium was packed with guests enjoying a dance party, unaware that danger loomed just above them. But what was wrong that night? Well, 2 walkways suspended over the atrium had a critical design flaw. During construction, a last-minute change had been made to the supports. Instead of the original design, which would have distributed the weight evenly, the modification unknowingly doubled the load on key connection points. This meant the walkways could no longer bear the weight they were designed for. Suddenly, the overloaded connections failed and the walkways collapsed, crashing down onto the partygoers below. In a matter of seconds, 114 people were killed and over 200 were injured. The aftermath revealed a chilling fact. Rigorous inspections could have caught the oversight. The design change wasn't properly assessed for its impact on load distribution. But could the responsible parties have been held accountable? Yes. Following the tragedy, Missouri's Board of Professional Engineers launched disciplinary proceedings revoking licenses for key individuals involved, including the engineer of record, Jack Gillam, and his colleague, Daniel Duncan. Legal proceedings later upheld these findings, citing failures at multiple stages, such as Duncan's approval of a load-amplifying design change without thorough review and Gillam's failure to ensure soundness before finalizing the engineering plans. This incident underscored the need for comprehensive load calculations, strict adherence to design protocols, and rigorous inspection standards. Champlain Towers South Collapse 2021. In Surfside, Florida, just past midnight on June 24, 2021, people were sleeping soundly. It was 1:22 a.m. when Champlain Towers South, a 12-story beachfront condominium, was quiet, lights flickering from a few late-night TVs and phones on chargers. Then, without warning, a massive section of the building began to crumble. Concrete and steel cascaded down, floors folding into each other like dominoes in the dark. A place that was home, a sanctuary, turned into an abyss of falling debris and muffled screams. 98 people didn't make it. Many others were left injured, stunned by the chaos. What had gone wrong? Warnings had come years before. Engineers noticed signs, spreading cracks, weakened concrete, water seeping into walls and pooling where it shouldn't. Under the pool deck and inside the garage, concrete had been decaying for years. Florida's salt air gnawed at the structure, weakening it, exposing rusted steel and undermining its stability. And yet, repairs never came. Delays and debates over funding stalled urgent actions. There were meetings, documents exchanged, and promises made, but in the end, no one acted quickly enough. Water kept seeping in, the concrete kept rotting, time ran out. A lawsuit was filed the day of the collapse, a resident demanding answers from the Champlain Towers South Condominium Association. Families and survivors banded together, calling out everyone they could: the association, contractors, consultants. The lawsuits accused them of negligence. And then in June 2022, a $1.02 billion settlement was reached, aiming at compensating survivors, families, and anyone left scarred by that night. The settlement included a hefty payout from a security company that failed to install a building-wide alarm system. No one faced criminal charges, but the cost was steep and insurance premiums skyrocketed for condominiums across the area. In Surfside, the echo of that collapse carried beyond legal battles. It pushed for new rules, stricter inspections, more oversight, especially for buildings vulnerable to Florida's weather. But for those who lost family, friends, and homes, the damage was already done. Knickerbocker Theater collapse, 1922, Washington, D.C. A snowy January night in 1922, the Knickerbocker Theater was packed. It was the Roaring '20s, and the theater was a local icon, a place of music, laughter, and escape. Outside, snow had piled up for days, unrelenting, thick, wet snow blanketing the city. But inside, no one thought twice about it. They were there to relax, oblivious to the mounting weight pressing down above them. Then, without warning, the roof groaned. In seconds, it buckled, crashing down into the crowd below. Beams and concrete shattered the seats, leaving screams in place of laughter. 98 people were killed, another 130 were injured. Why hadn't the roof held? Well, investigations would later reveal that the structure had no design safeguards for snow loads of that magnitude. The trusses were too thin, the beams too light. In the early 1920s, D.C. architects hadn't planned for such extreme winter weather. The disaster's weight stretched beyond the theater walls, haunting the men responsible. Architect Reginald Gere, named in newspaper after newspaper, became a public figure of blame. He took his own life 5 years later. Theater owner Harry Crandall did the same in 1937, never escaping the shadows of the disaster. Yet this tragedy left an indelible mark on building safety codes, ensuring that such oversights wouldn't be repeated. But as the years passed, new risks surfaced in other corners of America, born to an industry eager to build fast, push limits, and reach new heights. Willow Island disaster, 1978. 56 years later, West Virginia would see one of the worst construction accidents in U.S. history. It was April 27, 1978, and construction crews at Willow Island were rushing to finish a massive cooling tower at a power station. The towering concrete shell, only half completed, stretched 50.6 meters high. On that spring day, 51 workers climbed the scaffolding, preparing to pour fresh concrete. The deadlines were tight and the pressure was constant, but the concrete from the last pour wasn't set. The scaffolding that held it was shaky, and then, as they lifted new concrete to the top, the whole structure gave away. Concrete, scaffolding, and men crashed down together in a deadly wave of debris. Every worker in the tower perished. 51 lives were gone in seconds, leaving families and a stunned nation grappling with how such a failure could happen. The investigation was swift. OSHA charged the main contractor, Research Cottrell Incorporated, with serious safety violations, improper scaffolding, rushed timelines, and inadequate concrete testing. Fines were issued, regulations tightened, and construction sites across the U.S. began facing new inspections. The loss of life at Willow Island prompted contractors to rethink the balance between speed and safety, but the shadow of the neglect lingered, waiting to surface in another form in another place. 9 years later in Connecticut, a construction project was about to test this very balance again. Ambiance Plaza collapse, 1987. Bridgeport, Connecticut, April 23, 1987. Another ambitious project was underway, a 16-story apartment complex known as Ambiance Plaza. It was a symbol of modern innovation, using a new technique called lift slab construction to lift concrete slabs into place, forming each floor. The approach was cost-effective, faster than traditional methods, and increasingly popular. But had it been fully tested, fully understood? As workers on the ground and on the slabs began their day, the jacks holding up the concrete floors began to buckle. Without warning, the structure gave way, and massive concrete slabs cascaded down like dominoes, trapping workers in the collapsing skeleton of a building. 28 workers were crushed and killed in the catastrophe. Rescue teams swarmed the site, battling both debris and the grim realization that few could have survived such a devastation. The inquiries afterward revealed a shocking oversight. While the lift slab method was ingenious, it had never been proven reliable for high-rise projects. Safety protocols had failed to catch flaws in the supporting jacks, which crumbled under the structure's weight. The case led to a $41 million settlement implicating more than 20 parties in negligence. But with this settlement, investigations closed prematurely, and the exact cause of failure remained a mystery. The tragedy sparked urgent calls within the industry to slow down, to test and retest new methods before applying them on large-scale projects. As decades passed, these tragedies left a somber blueprint for the future of construction. Whether from neglect, haste, or untested innovation, the common thread remained. Lives were lost when corners were cut, when engineering safeguards failed, and when ambition outpaced caution. I-35. Bridge collapse, 2007. It was August 1st, 2007 in Minneapolis during rush hour. Thousands of cars packed the I-35 West Bridge, rolling bumper to bumper, parents heading home, friends heading out, kids in the back seat asking, "Are we there yet?" The bridge held them all, stretched over the Mississippi River, 1,907 feet of steel and concrete suspended above the water. Below, boats drifted lazily, unaware of the scene above. To those crossing it, the bridge felt as steady as it had for decades. Then, at 6:05 p.m., it happened. A loud rumble shook the air. Suddenly, concrete and steel gave way as the bridge buckled beneath the weight of 111 vehicles, construction equipment, and thousands of tons of steel. Within seconds, cars, trucks, and the bridge itself plunged into the Mississippi River, twisted metal and broken concrete scattering across the river and banks. How did this happen? For decades, a flaw lay hidden within the structure. Small but essential gusset plates holding beams together like bolts in a joint had been designed too thin. Over time, they weakened under the strain, their limits quietly eroding with every vehicle that crossed. On that day, they bore not just the usual traffic, but the weight of construction equipment added to the bridge for ongoing repairs. The plates buckled, and so did the bridge. 13 people lost their lives that day. 145 others were injured. Those who survived found themselves clinging to the broken fragments of what, minutes before, had been an ordinary commute. In the weeks following, Minneapolis was flooded with questions. Lawsuits followed, pushing for answers, accountability, and justice. Families sought compensation for the lives lost. Their lives changed forever. A $1 million fund was quickly established for victims and survivors, eventually growing to $38 million in 2008. But the demands didn't stop. In 2010, lawsuits against the construction companies were settled, awarding an additional $52.4 million. By 2012, a final lawsuit against the bridge's original design firm brought in $8.9 million, marking the end of the legal battles. Yet the impact of the collapse went beyond money and lawsuits. The world of infrastructure took note. In Minneapolis and across the country, officials scrambled to tighten safety protocols, inspections, and oversight for aging structures. Every bridge, every tunnel, and every piece of infrastructure suddenly felt suspect. Even in the most modern world, small, overlooked flaws can bring down giants, and the cost of that neglect can ripple far beyond the moment, changing lives forever. So what do you think? Are we learning enough from these disasters to ensure the next big project doesn't become a tragedy? Or will we continue to pay the price for overlooked flaws? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to stay informed about the world of construction and engineering. And thanks for watching.